from Gordon Chang. He's been with us all day. Also, Larry Korb, who we'll get to in just a second. Gordon, of course, is the author of the book, The Coming Collapse of China. Wide-ranging news conference there, Gordon. What was the takeaway for you?
I think the most important thing he said was that he did receive and has continued to receive a great reaction around the region. You know, he's talking from Laos, but he's also mentioned Vietnam and other places he's gone. That's absolutely true. I think he needed to be a little bit more frank about China, what happened there, and because he was disrespected, as well as Susan Rice being disrespected. So we need to have those conversations.
And let's bring in Larry Korb for a second, a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress and a former Assistant Secretary of Defense. Good morning to you, Larry. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
You just heard the president. You know, during this trip, we have North Korea firing missiles. Were you happy with what the president had to say about policy in North Korea and China's implementation of sanctions against North Korea?
Well, I thought he struck the right tone by saying previously we would relax the sanctions and then, you know, put them back on when they behaved after getting the benefits. He has not done that. He also talked about putting the theater high-altitude air defense system or missile defense system in South Korea that's bothered the Chinese, and said, well, if that bothers you, then lean on North Korea to tell them to stop this and we won't need it. So I thought he, you know, handled that situation very, 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 very well, balancing between North Korea's erratic behavior and China wanting to have it both ways with North Korea.
Gordon, I wanted to ask you, as President Obama spoke, he talked about trade and investment fueling jobs globally and how important it was for us in the U.S. to sustain the relationships that he's worked hard on over the last several years. He even went as far to say that Donald Trump not qualified to be president. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which the president mentioned, is really important because this is not just a trade deal. This is also the showing of American leadership. And if we want to avoid conflict in Asia, one of the best ways to do it is to bind the region to the U.S. through trade and investment. So this is, I think, critical. There's going to be trade, and the question is whether it's going to be our trade rules or China's trade rules. The president is right about that. You know, when it comes to the issue of Donald Trump there, the issue is really the treaties that we have with Philippines, South Korea, Japan. We need to defend those allies, and whatever one thinks about those treaties, now's not the time to change them.
Let's bring that same question to Larry. Are you confident that the president has done a good job in the region?
Oh, I think he's done a very good job, and the key thing is what they call the pivot or the rebalance to Asia, to tell the world that this is where our future really lays. This is where we have the threat from a rising power. We have all of our economic interests. And I agree with Gordon. You know, this going against the Trans-Pacific Partnership in the long term, if it doesn't go through, is going to really, really make it more difficult for us to protect not only our economic interests, but our security interests in that region. And if we don't, China will become the leading power.
Larry, I wanted to ask you, as Donald Trump has been rising in the polls over the last week or so, one area of concern is his dealings with foreign leaders and the like, and the security issues that we may face in these relationships. Your thoughts on how it should be handled? I mean, we heard President Obama saying that he didn't feel that Trump would be qualified. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think he really, when I talk to foreign leaders or people around the world, they are very, very concerned about the way Mr. Trump handles themselves and the answers he gives to a lot of questions without seeming to think it through. I mean, for example, say, well, it doesn't matter if South Korea and Japan want to get nuclear weapons. The last thing we need is a nuclear arms race in that part of the world. We're really, throughout the world, going back to President.
What about his concept that he's a deal maker? He went to Mexico and that he would, you know, he backed off on immigration. Do you think that he would end up making deals with some of these, obviously, countries that he's been quite forceful on?
Well, not unless he changes the way he deals with them. I mean, the last thing you want to do is, you know, tell people it's okay to get nuclear weapons. I mean, there are other deals that you want to make, and I think one of the best deals is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which he is against.
You know, it's interesting that it seems to me, Larry, that you are suggesting that Donald Trump would not do a good job as commander-in-chief in reaching these deals with other nations and protecting the United States. It's something the president just moments ago criticized Donald Trump, called his ideas wacky. But it seems that even President Obama is not commanding that respect in this area of the world. Look at the recent instances, North Korea, right?
Well, I think he has done an excellent job in focusing on the Pacific, getting all of the ASEAN or the non-Chinese nations to work together. I mean, the Philippines, which, came up, they've invited us back. We have our military forces there. We got forces in Singapore. We've got forces in Australia, in addition to Korea and Japan. The Japanese are beginning to spend, more on defense. I think he has basically created an environment there in which, the American interest will, be protected, and the American economy will grow.
All right. I like the optimism. Larry Korb, thank you so much for your time this morning, and of course to you, Gordon Chang, for joining us throughout the morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you both very much.